Do you have a children's book idea, but not a clear path to turn it into a published book? Or maybe you've always wanted to be an author, but don't know where to start or who to trust. My guest today helps writers move from idea to first draft to published books. Founder of Miriam Laundry Publishing, and she's here to share how she got started, why she built her own publishing company, and how she helps new authors bring meaningful stories to life. Welcome, Miriam.
Thank you so much for having me.
Communication. Let's hop right into the questions because I know I've got a lot of questions for you around your publishing company. How did your journey into children's book publishing begin, and what inspired you to leap into writing?
Yeah, such a good question. This takes me back to 2012. 2012 was a pivotal year for me. The biggest thing that happened was that we lost our 17-year-old niece who died by suicide.
Oh
As
my
you can imagine, this was a terrible thing, very difficult for my family. And it was very difficult for me also. I had just given birth the day before to my fourth child. So I was experiencing all the feelings together. And my husband noticed that I wasn't in a good place. A couple of weeks later, he noticed I was spiraling. So he suggested that I attend a seminar that we had been to together the prior year. This was taught by Jack Canfield. He's the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series and many, many other books. So the seminar was called Breakthrough to Success. So I left my newborn and I went there. And that week just inspired me. It changed things for me. It changed my perspective. He was teaching success tips about life, how to set goals, how to be clear on what we want, how to find our purpose, and how to let go of limiting beliefs and limiting thoughts and limiting words. And I just kept thinking that week, I wish I would have learned this when I was younger. Where would my niece's life be had she learned this when she was younger? And now what am I going to do for my children now that I know better, right? What can I do for them? So it was on the flight home that I decided I want to teach them a little bit. So I decided I was going to teach them to let go of the word can't, because that word can't is so limiting and so many levels. So, but I knew I just couldn't come home and dump the information on the kids. They were 0 to 9 years old at the time, 4 kids. So I wrote a picture book. I wrote the first draft to my first book. I thought if I can entertain them through a story and deliver the message, then that's going to be more impactful. Then they're going to sit down and listen to it. So that's what I did. That's how it all started for me. I went home and I decided I was going to publish this book. I knew nothing about the publishing world. I didn't know anything about writing, but I learned. I was committed. I was committed to making a difference in my children's lives. And then I was committed to making a difference in other children's lives. So other families wouldn't go through what we just went through. So that was the start, JoAnn.
Sad story, but so much that came out of that, Miriam. How many books have you written to date?
I've written 5 books myself. The first 3 I self-published, and then the last 2 I traditionally published.
And I would imagine as you were trying to figure out how to self-publish, did you ever think early on, you know what, maybe I need to start a publishing company? When did that idea come along?
That did not come early on. I had no visions like that. I made a lot of mistakes with that first book. I made a lot of mistakes. It cost me a lot of money. What I was looking for back then was a mentor, somebody to help me, but I couldn't find one. I asked, I got to know some people and I could ask them questions here and there, but I wanted somebody to take me from beginning to end. And had I found that early on, I think I would have saved so much money, because I spent money on things I didn't need because I didn't know. And then I would have saved myself so many headaches, so many sleepless nights, because I could ask somebody. So I didn't think about the publishing company 2020. So 2013, I published my first book. I focused on going into schools, delivering my message to children. And through the years, people always approached me or would reach out to me, or a friend of a friend. Can they pick your brain? Can you get on a coffee date or a phone call? So I did that for many years. But I wondered after our meetings, what happened? Did they finish their book? Did they accomplish it? I never heard back from them. So in 2020, I decided, okay, I'm actually going to help some people. I put out an email. I was looking for 6 authors to mentor, and the spots were taken so fast.
Wow.
Found 6 authors, and I mentored them for a whole year and published their books. So that's when I opened the publishing company. And now that first program that I started just celebrated. I mean, we celebrate every book, but as of today, we have published 248 books under that program.
My gosh, your story is very similar to mine. I wrote
Really?
my first book for my grandson. I love to go camping. When he went on his first camping trip, I knew nothing about it, and he came over and he told me all about his first fish he caught, the first hiking trail, all of the nature that he learned about. I just remember seeing that he was so zealous and so excited to tell me his story, and I said, "How can I hold on to this?"
Oh,
It was so
nice.
special. But when I started looking into it, I knew nothing about it either, and I hired a traditional publisher that
Mhm.
was way too expensive. And I actually hired an author coach in 2019. The same story, trying to look for a mentor that could help me. At what point did you see that pushed you to build something new for authors? What is it that was your experience and you brought forward and what you learned with those 6 authors?
My goal was always to empower a lot of children. That first year that I published my book, I set a goal that I was going to empower 100,000 children through my books. I was able to accomplish that. That's a long other story. I went for a Guinness World Record and accomplished that and empowered children. So that's always been my drive. I realized that if I can help other authors publish quality books, and that's the main thing, that they're quality children's books, that together we can empower even more children. So that was how things started for me in 2020. I mentioned the one program, but the other thing that I do is I teach how to write children's books, how to self publish, and then how to launch your book. Because I feel like people need to know that. They need to know how to write good children's books. It's not enough that we're good writers and we just write something, because a 5-year-old is very different than a 10-year-old. The things that a 5-year-old is interested in are completely different than a 10-year-old, and same thing. So you really need to know how to write for that age category that you're writing for.
Once you started working with those 6 authors that you felt like
Oh,
this is
yes.
really needed, share with us a little bit about
Yes.
what you learned working with those 6
So one author comes to mind immediately. Her name is Lori Parks. She shared with me that she had had a dream of being an author since she was 9 years old. At that
Wow.
time, she was 15, she was 58, about to turn 59. So
Mm.
I understood there that for a lot of authors, aspiring authors, they've had this dream for decades. And we worked together for a year. Who she was at the beginning, she was a very quiet lady, and at the end, and lacked a little bit of confidence. Love her, but at the beginning, she lacked a little bit of confidence. By the end, when she published her book, she got to hold her book in her hands, a 50-year-old dream. I mean, she cried the entire interview because I interview my authors. I was crying. It was so meaningful that I was hooked, wanted to do more of that. So, who I saw in the end was this confident lady who achieved that dream that she had had for 50 years. After accomplishing something like that, what else is possible for them, right? For her. So that was one example. Another example is Cindy Crosby was in that first group of the 6 authors. And she was inspired to write a book one day at the playground when she heard her son trying to talk to a little boy that did not speak English. And she thought, I just wish she could even say hello in his language.
Mm.
But he didn't know. So that day she went home and she wrote a little bit of a nonfiction book of saying, it's called Saying Hello. So saying hello in 10 different languages, and then also learning a little bit about the culture. Again, I saw what a difference that book made in her life, made in her children's lives. I mean, I'm hooked on that. I love that feeling. I love seeing authors transform themselves from beginning wanting something, having a long dream, to then achieving it, and the confidence that they have in the end.
Absolutely. What an accomplishment you must feel like. I can't even imagine. I know what it's like, even after 15, 16 books, holding that next book in your hand. There's nothing
Yes.
like it. You just feel like they're your children. And it
Yes.
never gets old. It really does not get old. And I'm sure you can contest to this. You learn something new along every path of every book. I don't know what it is, no matter how many systems I have in place, my checklist, there's always something new. And I think that's because sometimes it's a different book, it's a different
Mhm.
story. Share with us a little bit about what you see in regards to that.
Yes, it's I mean, that's very true. Every book is different. For me, it's always about the teaching part, right? I always want to, because I started off wanting to teach my children, inspire my children, I was looking for books that empower children. So for me, it starts with that message. And then how do I turn that around into a problem? And then how do I make that child friendly for that age group? So it starts like that with me. And in the process of writing those books, I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning about the writing process. I'm also learning how the books are received. I like to read the books to children before I publish them. So I think the learning is continuous. We are always learning and we're always growing. And I think that's the beauty of what we do. We always want to be growing.
Yes, absolutely. Can you walk us through your publishing process and the team behind Miriam Laundry's Publishing? What makes your approach unique to new authors? I love the fact, I think what makes you unique that I've learned today is that I didn't know you taught your authors how to write. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a huge can be an issue with a new author. They think they got this fabulous story and then they learn more from you in how to write. Share a little bit about your process.
So for the writing components, the writing modules of my program, I partnered with an amazing children's book author. So I've written 5 books. I can write books, but this lady has been in the industry for 40 years. She has written over 72 children's books. I feel so blessed that I found her. Her name is Sharon Jennings. She
Mm,
ghost wrote 40, I think 44 of the Franklin the Turtle books. So she is in Canada. She is well known for her writing. So
wow.
she comes in and together we teach the writing modules and we teach about writing. So
Mm,
that's the beginning part. I think you cannot move forward without knowing some key things about writing children's books, right? And here's the thing, if we skip through that and if we skip through finding a professional editor that's going to help us make our story stronger, I think we're doing a disservice. I think a lot of people who self-publish are trying to do something quick, are trying to save money, but in the end, it costs us more money because publishing something quick that is not professional in the way that a child is going to receive that book, then it's
mm,
been a waste of money the whole time because the book is not going to sell. Children are not going to ask for that book. So I think it's important as authors that we learn the art of writing for a specific age group, children's picture
mhm,
books. That's what I
mhm.
specialize in, and that our goal should be for a child to be read a story and the next day or right after for that child to say, read it again, read it again. That's what we want. We want to write the types of books that children are going to enjoy, they're going to be entertained by, and that they're going to learn something from.
Yes. And so once you've taught them, do you require the writing component before you go into at taking a manuscript and editing it and publish our illustrations? Share a little bit about
Definitely.
that.
First is learning to write, writing your
Mm,
manuscript, doing self editing. I think that's really important as you continue to write. I had I don't know about you, JoAnn, but for me, for the first book, I had 17 different edits, 17 different drafts of my
wow.
manuscript. Because at the beginning, you're fixing, okay, bigger things. In the end, maybe it's more grammar or punctuation. But I think that's really
Mm,
important because the story evolves and we
yes.
evolve as writers. We continue to learn. Some self editing, then we go to a professional editor. So we have amazing editors in at Miriam Laundry Publishing that support them with that. And when I'm talking about edits, I'm talking about a full story analysis first. What is working from your story, your manuscript, where you need to put in more work, what you can expand on. And you want the real feedback from people who know what they're doing. After that, we do a structural edit and then finally a copy edit. So that's the process of the writing. Once that is finished, the next step is illustrations. You do not want to hire an illustrator to start your work before you have your story professionally edited because you're going to make changes to your story and then it's going to cost you more money with illustrations to go back and ask for the changes. So the editing phase, then the illustration phase, and then we go into book design phase, finalizing the story, choosing the font, finalizing every detail of the book. Then we go to printing and publishing and printing. And then, of course, a book launch, which is always exciting.
Yes. Do you have illustrators that you can share with your authors that they can choose from, or what's the process for the illustrations?
Yes, I think it's really important for every author to choose the illustrator they want to work with because as authors, we have we have a vision of what our book will look like. I always think it's unfair for a publisher to choose that for you, for the author. So we support our authors in finding their illustrators, whether we connect them to an agency or we also have a list of illustrators that our past authors have worked with and they have been happy with. So I think that's really important. The author has to be very comfortable working with that illustrator.
And who lays out the book prior to it going to printing? Do you have a book designer or
We
does
do
the
have
illustrators do that?
we do have a book designer. I do think it's important that before you finalize or go into details of the illustrations that the illustrator provide a storyboard of your book.
Mhm.
So a storyboard is just essentially a map of what the 32 pages will look like, what will go on each page. And I think, well, as publishers, I look at that, the author looks at it, we make sure that everything looks right before we move on to, okay, now we're doing the details of the illustrations. I also
Mhm.
think it's important for the illustrator to put the writing on each page as a placeholder, and then that can be finalized with the book designer
I
after that.
see. Great information. I have chatted with many authors, and there's a lot of words being thrown out, and I'm guilty of this. Hybrid publishing versus traditional versus self publishing. Share with us, are you considered a hybrid publisher, or what are your thoughts on that?
For a long time, I will say I called myself a hybrid publisher. Right now, I'm
Okay.
staying away from that because people have this negative idea and because there are many ways to hybrid publish a book. So, right now, I like to say that we offer publishing services. The big difference for all of those that are listening and who may not know this first, there was traditional publishing. Most people got their books traditionally published. That seems to be the holy grail that a lot of first time authors want. But things have changed in the publishing world. Everything has changed.
Mhm.
Publishers do not take on a lot of authors. Most people will receive rejection letters or rejection emails, especially if you are a first time author. That has been my experience. A traditional publisher will cover the costs of publishing a book and they are your publisher. So there's pros and cons to that. So that's one way to do it. You may be waiting a long time for that. I'll say for the book that I traditionally published, from the moment I wrote that book until it was published, it took 5 years. 5 years. I'm glad at first I self-published my books. Self-publishing means that you are putting it all together. You're covering the costs and you are learning and you're hiring the professionals to help you publish your book. Pros and cons to that also. A lot of times, I'll say that the biggest con is that you won't see your book published because a lot of us run into a roadblock and give up there, or it becomes too
Mhm.
much work and we stop ourselves. So I think that's one of the reasons that there are so many aspiring authors that don't get to the finish line.
Mhm.
Hiring a company that provides publishing services, you do have to do your due diligence. But what I strive to do is to provide a support system where we publish the books. Two things: I'll either teach you how to do it on your own, or two, we publish it with you. We publish your book for you and with you. And with that, you're making a commitment, you have accountability, you've got an author coach. You mentioned that you hire author coaches. In my program, I provide author coaches where authors can speak to their author coaches every single month. And it's about showing up and being held accountable and getting to the finish line. So that's the big difference. I think with hybrid publishing, there's a negative connotation to that because there are so many variety of hybrid publishers. I think if you are paying for publishing services, a couple of things are important as an author. It's important that in the end of the project, the author owns the rights to the book. To me, that's important. If you're paying for the services, you should own the rights to the book. Two is that you keep creative control of your book. This is your project. You're hiring for professional services, but this is your baby. You get final say. And then thirdly, after paying for the fee of being in a program or for the publishing services, that there's no royalties that you have to share with that publishing company. Because of that, I don't like to call myself hybrid publishing anymore. I like to say that we offer professional publishing services.
Oh, I love that. Great clarification on that. I really appreciate it. I know you touched on this term earlier. Your mission is to empower children by empowering authors. How does that passion show up in the authors you work with and the books you choose to publish?
Yes. Oh, I'm so proud of all of 248 authors so far that we have published books with. I will say through my teaching programs, we have had 5,000 people, a little bit over 5,000 people go through that and learn how to write for children. But I see that in the quality of books that are being published. Recently, we published a book called Little Panda and Her Sticky Thoughts by Amanda Ferris. And it's such an empowering book for children about the thoughts that we have. And she calls it sticky thoughts. It's the negative thoughts. It's the limiting beliefs. I call it the big bad bully in our minds, but I love that concept of sticky thoughts. And she's making a difference with that. Children need to see themselves in children's books and then have those conversations with their parents. We know that a picture book is for a child that's 4 to 8. They're going to be sitting with mom and dad or grandparent or a caregiver. And then in the back of her book, she has questions to open up those conversations with your children. And I think that's so empowering for a family and that's so empowering for children. I could go on. Randy Larson, one of our authors, just published Moonlight Wishes. And I just saw this on her social media. She shared that. So in her book, this little boy is feeling lonely. And in the end, they adopt a dog to be with him. And she shared in her social media that a family reached out to her and said, "We loved your book. Thank you for that. Our son was feeling like that. And as a family, we just went and adopted a dog." So much can come out of children's books. I believe that we can change the world with quality children's books because that's the most important age, right? Before a child is 8, 9 years old, they have made up their minds about how they fit into the world, about who they are, if they're smart or not, if those feelings that they're feeling are normal or not for them. I want to get to children at that age. I love all of the books that we're publishing. I think they all make a difference and that lights me up.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're on the ground floor of seeing all those stories come to life and how they affect kids. And talking about the author and empowering others, you have author mentors that have published. I've interviewed some of your authors that now are mentors, and I love hearing that story. I think that's so unique that you have that program within your company that the seasoned authors now are mentoring. That's worth so much money, wealth, and weight of what that does for that new author. I can't say enough because I missed that. Even as hiring an author coach, you have that coach, but you don't have all those authors within your company that are there to help one another. Share with us a little bit about that program.
I really believe that we're not meant to do anything alone in life. And I feel like a lot of authors think that writing is an alone sport. I need to do that by myself. But we're missing out. We're completely missing out on community, on friendships. We're missing out on so much. Yes, we do have author coaches, but when you're speaking specifically about my program called Publishing Mastermind, when an author is in there in that container for 12 months, they're in a cohort with other authors. And every month we have a group call. So every month, everybody gets a chance to be in the hot seat and ask their questions. You're not only learning from your questions, you're learning from the questions that your fellow authors are asking. And then because each one is sharing, bonds are being made, communication continues later. It is so imperative to find your community when we want to achieve anything in life, anything at all. But now, talking specifically about children's books, when you have grown together for 12 months, you get to know each other. And in the end, when they each publish their books, they are each other's biggest cheerleaders. That's beautiful to see. The friendships continue beyond our programs. I think that is so important. We're going to get there faster together when we're in community and when we're having fun doing it. So I think it's so important. Anything you want to do in life, find your people, find your community. Yes.
Absolutely. That's what Liliana had shared with me, that she said she was so nervous to be in that large group and ask questions. And then she would say, I was going to ask that, or somebody answered a question that she had in her own mind. I think that is fabulous, Miriam. And what a way to empower.
I love seeing what comes out of that.
What's your thoughts about book awards?
So I think, is it essential? Well, I'll tell you that I applied for book awards when I first published my books. I think that book awards add credibility, some more than others. And I would say that a lot of times parents are not recognizing the awards. But I think
Right.
two things happen. One, if you get an award, you can put that medallion or talk about it on your social media, your website. I actually added mine on bookmarks. I think it adds credibility. And two, it adds a little bit more confidence for each author that your book has been judged and it's been given whatever it may be, 1 star, 2 star, three, or silver, gold, whatever it is. So I don't think you need a lot of awards. Even just getting one award, I think can be good for those two purposes. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. If you are on a tight budget, it's not necessary at all. Of course, awards do have a fee. You have to submit your application fee. So you'll have to watch for the one that you want to choose.
I always say choose them wisely. Some have
Yes.
a little bit more weight than others. My favorite is Best Independent Book Awards. You're up against a lot of other books, and they have a panel that they're choosing, whether it's best cover, whether it's best illustrations, best story. That
Hmm.
holds a lot of weight. When I go to farmers markets, I'll say, this book won 2025 best cover. And they'll say, oh, and so that's always a good feeling. It always makes you
Yes.
feel like you've really accomplished something. I've interviewed authors that say, "Oh, they're not worth the money." I don't know. I tend to disagree with that, and I think it's just a personal preference. But I appreciate
Yes.
you sharing your feelings on it.
This just reminds me, a couple of years ago, I was a judge for book awards in my community. It's not one of the big book awards, but I agreed to it and it was a lot of work. They sent me 20 books. It was some children's picture books and some a little bit older books for children. And it was a lot of work for me to sit down and answer all of the questions and rank the books, talk about strengths and weaknesses that I have not repeated it because it was a lot of work, but I can imagine that we submit all of our independently published books. The judges, it's a lot to read and consider. So I do like the awards.
That's great. You have a free writing resource, children's book blueprint. What can new authors expect and how can they get this resource? Do you have to be an author that is signed on with
Oh
you and
no,
you're
no.
going through that?
A free resource. They can just go to MiriamLaundry.com/blueprint. So I put that together a couple of years ago because one of the things that I kept hearing from aspiring authors is I have this idea, I haven't started writing, and I would ask them, do you have an outline for your story? And they didn't. So this is essentially an outline of how I wrote my first couple of books and how I did it. So for me, I've started with the message that I want to convey. We know that the books cannot be heavy handed with the messages. I want to say that right off the bat. And then from there, I go to the problem. And then how do we move this child character, whatever that child character is, from beginning to end, from problem to figuring out the solution? So it's a blueprint on how to do that, how to outline your story so that you feel prepared and you can sit down and write your first draft. So anybody is welcome to go get that. It's completely free.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to look into it. I wish I would have found somebody like your company. And I've said this before, you're just so lost and you don't know where to start. It costs a lot of money if you're hiring an illustrator. I'm a big fan of your company, Miriam, and I know you're doing a lot of good work out there. Is there anything that you would like to share about your company that I haven't asked?
Well, you've asked a lot of great questions. Well, I'll tell you something that I'm very excited about that we've just started actually this past month because of the need and what I have seen with different goals I've set for myself that we move faster when we are in community and when we are held accountable. I started a membership called Story Makers. So this is just for children's book authors who are looking for that community who can check in every single week, either do breakout rooms, we'll do peer to peer feedback, different activities like that, or just come and set some time for writing. So show up once a week in doing something that we feel our authors need. And again, this is where our authors are finding their community and where they're being held accountable to make progress in their writing and their publishing. So that's something that I'm very, very excited about. And it's brand new, Story Makers.
That's wonderful. That sounds like an exciting program to get involved in. Do you have a few of your books
Uh,
with you?
This is my latest book, The Big Bad Bully. I will say I don't promote my books very much, my 5 books, because now we're promoting all of our authors' books and sharing about those. But a lot of times, or this book specifically, The Big Bad Bully, I feel like, well, for me, I get inspired seeing what my kids are going through, challenges that they're going through. And I think if they're going through that, then I can write a book about that and a child is going to benefit from that. In this particular book, my daughter was in the 6th grade and she was looking at herself in a mirror in my bedroom, a big mirror, and saying things like, Mommy, why is my hair so frizzy? Why are my legs so short? Why do I have so many pimples? As a mom, I was saying, Oh, honey, you're perfect, you're fine, all these things, but nothing was changing how she was feeling and how she was thinking until I said, Honey, stop it. You are bullying yourself. And the fact that I
Hmm.
just said that, you're bullying yourself, I could see in her eyes that she understood that concept as bullying being bad. We don't want to bully other people. But the fact that she was bullying herself with her thoughts and her thinking, I could see a shift there. So that night, I wrote the outline and the first draft to The Big Bad Bully. It's about our self bullying and our limitations and our negative self chatter. So I think there are opportunities all around us. All we have to do is listen, pay attention to the things that children are saying, and we can write a book that will be impactful in their lives. I'll share that, JoAnn. I don't promote my books as much. I like to talk about all the other books that we are publishing.
I appreciate that. That sounds like a great book. Not only that, Miriam, I would think that even your books that you've written are examples to some of your authors and what your journey was writing that you can share with them as well. And I'm sure they appreciate everything that you're sharing and helping them with. And I am a real estate broker. I owned a brokerage. A lot of the real estate agents didn't want the brokers to sell, and they looked at it as competing. It's a fine line, but you
Yes.
can be proud of what you've done too in your work.
Definitely. And I think in the world of children's books, I don't think we're ever in competition with other authors. And that's why I love seeing, again, the friendships that are made between our authors, because children don't just need one book, right? Like they need a lot of books, they need hundreds
Right.
of books. And so we're never in competition. I think we should always be supporting each other. So I think my focus has changed now to the publishing company more than promoting my book.
I can completely understand. Miriam, it has been so great speaking with you about your company. Share with the listeners if they're thinking about writing a book or don't know who to turn to, where can they find you?
Yes, my website is MiriamLaundry.com, and I'm also on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram, Miriam Laundry Publishing.
Yes, that's where I found you as well. I really appreciate your time today and thank you so much, Miriam.
It's been a pleasure, JoAnn. One last message for everybody is to just go for it. If you have a dream of writing a book, of making a difference with children's books, just know that children need your book and you can absolutely do it. If JoAnn and I did it, you can absolutely do it too.
Thank you for joining Beyond the Book with JoAnn Dickinson. If you love children's books, author stories and the creative process behind publishing, be sure to subscribe and share this episode. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.